Scott, I'll start with you. But both you guys recently had an article a couple weeks ago in Security Management Magazine, and you guys were highlighting that the retirement of the baby boomers and the changing workplace demographics is as one of the biggest, I guess, challenges for corporate security over the next, say, 5, 10 years. Why did you
Yeah.
guys put so much emphasis on demographics?
Yeah, I really can't beat the drum enough about this issue because it's going to significantly, I think it's going to significantly impact our industry. With what we're seeing, and to kind of recap for listeners that aren't aware, we are losing one of the largest generations in world history. And this is definitely not a US problem. This is a US, Canada, North America, Eastern Europe, France,
China.
Japan, definitely South Korea, China problem. And so what we're seeing is the baby boomer generation is aging into retirement. The youngest baby boomer will retire or will be retirement eligible 65 by 2030, which means it's already started, right? We're already starting to see this. And I think the big kind of over the hill push was COVID-19 and our response, or many of our government's response to lockdowns and not allowing people to go back to work and things like that. So that progressed it a lot further. It also implemented the, hey, you can work remote thing. And, oh, we got that to work. Well, maybe we keep doing it. Unfortunately, that impacts a lot of our industries. And one of the main industries that we've been talking about is how does it impact corporate security, right? And so I think there's really two things that are interesting to talk about here. One is baby boomers, which traditionally have held the top roles in corporate security. So they're the CSOs, they're the senior managers, senior directors, and they have tons of experience. They have been, to Carlos's point earlier, they've been through the Cold War, they've been through the global war on terror, and then they maybe even survived the pandemic. Right now, they're like, forget all this. I've seen way too much, and in their lifetime, they're gone, or they will be gone, and they're aging to retirement. So then the next generation, our generation, Gen X, is a much smaller generation. Fortunately, big generations have big generations, and the next generation behind that is the millennials. Gen X is not big enough to fill all these roles that will be empty in the very near future. And we're talking everything from our internal security teams to our security vendors, technology security vendors, guard force management. Everything is going to be impacted by the loss of this generation. So Gen X can't fill it. Right now, the millennials are starting to come up. Right, they had a really rough start in the mid 2000s at least in the U.S. when the bottom fell out of the market, and they had been told by their baby boomer parents or maybe even silent generation parents to go out and get that really expensive college degree because you need it, and that's the only way to survive. And then they get out of college and no jobs, right? But they're clawing their way up there, and they're young people, they're technology centric. The good thing is they have kind of a nice mishmash between being technology centric and being social. They know what it's like to play outside until the lights come on. And so they're really good at teamwork. But what we need from them is you got to have that experience, because you millennials are going to take those top roles. We're going to have 20 something and 30 something CSOs. Let that sink in.
I'll build on that, man. It's a really interesting thing because, you stop at millennials. We talked about even Zoomers, right? Which are after millennials. I mean, they're going to be coming in and they're going to be stronger than ever when it comes to a lot of things. But it's like the chicken and the egg kind of thing, because you look at is the technology going to take over? Therefore, we don't need the human beings, or we're not going to have enough human beings that we need the technology.
Right.
And Rob, that's kind of like where we're living these days, and it's really interesting because he's talking about kind of the ageism of people, the aging population, but there's a lot of other things that go along with that. So migration and globalization, there's a lot of movement on the populace going into that influence demographic in a place. And that's a lot of changing. I mean, we hire a bunch of Russians and Chinese and Indians, right? And a lot of them are coming to America and helping us with a lot of our technology. but the earth is also getting old. So we might have to deal with environmental factors. So, that comes around, people say, and not to get political, like this climate change thing. Look, we all know that the earth goes through a lot of cycles, right? Are we at that time now, because the earth is getting older and older, that we're going through one of those cycles? So that's really another thing that Scott and I talk about a lot. Um, but all of those things come into effect, even with urbanization. I mean, look, why we're going to need more technology and what we're doing? Well, a lot of people are going into these tier two, tier three kind of cities. You would think that back then everybody wanted to be in the San Francisco, New York kind of places. Now they're moving back, to cities like Columbus, Ohio, which is kind of like a tier two secondary city, or maybe even a more of a rural cities that are around in those places, because you can do business. And by the way, I'm in a data center world, so we're constantly moving wires across the country, which is bettering everybody's Wi-Fi capabilities, right? So that helps. By the way, thank you, data center industry, for bringing a lot of fiber to places where it didn't exist before. But anyways, man, so many things, and we keep on going on this stuff, man.
Yeah. I was taking down a ton of notes there from that conversation. So there's like 5 different ways that we could go next. One of the things I want to just not so much push back, because I agree with your guys' thesis, but I'm just going in. I'm thinking of like what listeners might be thinking right now. And I've been hearing about the retirement of the baby boomers impacting everything since I started university. Like, it was always coming down the pike. It's always this thing. It's going to be an issue in the future. And it's like, okay, yeah, I'm hearing you. Is this like a long-term issue? Why do I need to really worry about it? Like Scott, tell me, like, why should I start being concerned about this in 2024 versus like 2030, 2035, where it's kind of vague?
Yeah, it'll be over by 2030. But if we're just starting to be worried about this, it's too late. But this was always going to happen in the 2020s. It's just math. We just look at our demographics, and if you're counting your demographics appropriately, like North America does, not like China does. They undercounted their population. They're actually going back to recount it. They went back in November and are recounting their census, or redoing their census. But they were off by about 100 billion
there.
So,
100 million
or 100 million.
Well, 100 million. And you want to talk about 100 million in numbers?
A lot.
We rarely talk about this, but it was part of our study when we put it together, Rob, when we talk about these things. By the way, we don't just sit around and talk about things. We actually go and do the research. We actually do the research. And one of the things that, it's really weird to talk about, but this piece that Scott just broke down, and, he won't say it, but I can, because I'm a little weird like that. But fertility rates, why we got to start worrying about this right now? This number that he's talking about, 100 million, right? They were off 100 million. But fertility rates, we don't know. The big cities now, fertility rate is going down. Births are going down. We don't know what right now, if kids are being born at 21, 22, they might be running a company 22, 23 years from now that all of us are working for, right? Those rates are dropping too, man, in cities that, that are developed, countries that are developed, right? Underdeveloped countries, that's actually the opposite way a little bit, but that all influences, and that's what we care about. We're looking at the spectrum as a whole, man, on what's going to do to our industry. Yeah.
Well, it's a global economy. That's why, right? And so we as security professionals have to understand global supply chains and where the markets are, and no longer can we say we're not going to do business with X company or Y country. And I know there's an embargo against Russia, but they're still trading partners. We still trade with them, right? So we in corporate security are usually left holding the bag. Hey, how do we figure this out? How do we how do we allow us to do business there? But to Carlos's point, these studies of the UN did a study a year or so ago in regards to where fertility rates are going. And should we be concerned about that? I don't know that there's much we can do about it, but we need to be aware of it, because this goes to our global candidate pool. Right? Where are we going to find candidates if we're going to be the corporate security leaders of the future? Where are we going to find these global candidates? And do we need to say we need to spread our searches more broadly? Carlos and I do a lot of work with our veteran community and our law enforcement, public safety community for their transition to the private sector, and that's one area to bring folks into. but we need to what I always say is act locally, think globally, right? Don't get stuck in this. I need to find a person, and to Carlos's point, Columbus, Ohio. Where's that perfect unicorn person in Columbus, Ohio, right? And that's I think going to be our challenge. We should be thinking about where people are going. How are we going to bring them into our organization and make them
Lord, man,
successful, even
and Rob,
if
talking about making
they're
them
not
successful,
the
and he touched on a
perfect
point that we
person.
also cover, is that a lot of law enforcement folks, military folks, come into our industry, and we're going to rely on a lot more of them in the future, right? And one of the things, because we cover and we care so much about those folks that are in the emergency services side of the house, right, military side of the house, are they getting the mental health necessary? That's a whole other like podcast that we can do, but they're going to be coming into our industry, right? Are they ready mentally after what they've suffered, right? Especially in the past 3 years in law enforcement, military, God, forever and ever and ever, and every little wars and nick and cranny that we find ourselves in. But those are the folks that are also going to influence a lot. There goes my Portuguese, right? You see how that just came straight up? Are going to influence a lot of what we do in our industry. So, man, there's so many things about the human aspect of this, right? So.
Well, I just think like, we've had this huge millennial generation that kind of came through the university system. So when we had the baby boomers, Gen X, millennials, and this massive labor force, companies didn't have to really ration or think too much about recruiting. There was so much talent out there. Well, now all of a sudden we got Gen Z coming in, very, very tiny.
Yeah.
And to like you guys were saying, they're not going to be there to replace all the baby boomers that are leaving. Well, now we got to start looking at the people that we have as a scarce resource, and it's suddenly, whoa, when something's scarce, it becomes a lot more valuable. So
that's right,
guys. Why don't we go into some of the solutions that you guys were talking about, or some of the things that security leaders should be thinking about that you mentioned in the article? One of the big things that you guys mentioned right away was investing in technology and automation, and this is going to be absolutely essential going forward. I don't know, Carlos, do you want to start with this one?
Yeah, we talk about cognitive technologies that are going to augment our human decision making, and I think that's where it's going to be. It's those technologies that are really going to allow us to be faster, smoother. A lot of people ask the question, and we've gotten this before multiple times, Scott. Like, how do you feel about our friend Chad? Chat GPT, and we usually say, it's a hell of a tool. It's an incredible tool, but you have to know how to use it. You got to use it properly. I mean, for Scott and I, we use it and we're open about it, but we use it to kind of give us a direction. When our minds are really bogged up, like, give us a direction where we go. But then we take our knowledge and we build upon that, right, Scott? I mean, that's kind of how we roll.
We're the experts. Yeah. Chad is going to pull it from, a language model somewhere in a data center. But what we tell folks, and we were just talking about this, is with a client, you're the expert. You got to know. Yeah, sure. Use Chad to help figure out that roadmap, but you're the expert, so you know what is real and what is not, or what is just kind of an
what we're looking
algorithm
for, Rob, is
spitting
really
something out
real
to fill in a
technology,
blank.
not the fake AI.
You've got to be
right? Everything's
SME.
AI right now. So when Scott and I, through Corporate Security University, we go into a place trying to find a technology that we enjoy, that we can stand behind, that we can work through. A lot of it has to do, is it fake AI or not? Is it real machine learning or not, right? Or is it just 5, 10 extremely intelligent people in a back office, right, putting everything together and then uploading as a software to some hardware somewhere? So for us, it's looking for that technology that is true, generative AI kind of stuff, which, by the way, data centers are getting heavy on right now. That their data centers, they're being built exactly just for that. It's amazing what the future of that's going to be. But if we can get those tools that can really help us with like predictive behavior analysis and anomalies for real, not some pixelity on a camera system that changes, not some movement, right? Like the real, that's where Scott and I deeply get into like, let's find that unicorn and let's stand behind and let's make it happen. And you would look for it every day.
One of the real cool things that we were talking about, guys, yesterday when we were fleshing out topics for the show was, like we're talking about the baby boomers retiring, but they still have lots of great skills. They're still there. Scott, why don't you talk to me a little bit about that? About like what are ways security leaders can still harness the talent that's in that organization, and maybe
Yeah.
why they should be thinking about that.
This is one of my pet peeves. It's the oh, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Yeah, you can, and COVID proved it because Graham went to church in Zoom. So, and she has an iPhone now, and she knows how to FaceTime, and she knows how to order pizza from Alexa. So, did it turn on? No. Okay, mute that. To turn on everybody's Alexa. So, upskilling and reskilling is really important, right? So if folks want to stay in the industry, we want them to stay. We need them to stay, really. And if we can upskill them and reskill them, those are two really kind of different things. In addition to, our human resources needs to get smarter about how to use people. We were talking about your dad yesterday and how he's an SME in data center and IT. And wouldn't it be great if he wanted to work 8 to 12 hours, 20 hours a week, right? Maybe he doesn't want a full-time job, doesn't need a full-time job, just wants to be there to mentor these millennials who are now finding themselves already in leadership roles with I talk to journeyman folks all the time, and they say, "Oh yeah, it takes 5 to 10 years to learn how to do this trade, whatever it is, this thing." And I say, "Well, what are you doing now? Because you don't have those folks." And they're like, "Yeah, it takes like half or a quarter of the time." And so you're putting people into decision making positions, perhaps where previously they relied on their knowledge and experience and really good mentorship that brought them up. Now they don't have that. It's gone. So can we bring folks back and retain them in a part-time consulting contract way? Or if we can't and they want to work 40 hours a week, can we upskill them and reskill them? I think you can. It's just going to take, and this is where Carlos is talking about AI, it's going to take the ability to understand where you have gaps and where you have needs, and then leveraging that AI. We talk about this with Corporate Security University all the time, which is the kind of the future of education will be these quick certifications or certificates or quick learnings that we can give somebody where we've talked with clients and it's like they want big, my eyes are bigger than my stomach and I want all these things. And what we are finding is that people want shorter, faster. Just give me the answer, man. Give me the answer. That's all I want. If I Google better spit out. I don't go past page 1. Nobody goes past page 1. That's it, right? Give me the answer. I need it right now. And with generative AI, it's doing that, giving you the answer. And we can tailor these learnings to these folks. So if you have somebody who is older, they don't necessarily, I hate this stance that, oh, I'm not a computer guy. I don't understand computers. Yeah, you do. You carry a computer that's faster than what was put into the lunar lander during the Apollo missions. You have something that can calculate on your wrist. You have something to calculate better than what was used in the 60s. So you can do it, but nobody tells them that they can. Nobody shows them that they can. The pandemic helped, right? The pandemic pushed us all out, and then you had to take your laptop home. Pop had to be on Zoom, 8 hours a day. And then Graham learned how to go to Zoom church. We did it. We survived. Most of us survived. So
exactly,
we are evolving as people, and we are understanding technology better.
If all of education and security in the future is not like a YouTube style of education, it's over. It's done. I honestly think that in the future, you will find at every university or school, college, whatever the case may be, it's going to be that. Even back in the days, thank God for YouTube for getting me through calculus, at college, at university. So, I mean, come on, those things are all happening, and it's going to continue to happen. It's not going to change, but there's just a lot of human stuff going on. We haven't even touched about like gig economy, where you think those things are going to go, because we're humans are working like these side gigs like there's no tomorrow, right? Security's going to start doing that as well. Why do I have to go work for a security company if I could do these gigs everywhere doing different things as long as I'm licensed? Like, there's a lot of future changes that we also think the industry needs. But yeah, I digress. Go ahead, Rob.
I want to get one more thing in on the demographics point, because we still got a few other things I want to chat about. But on the opposite end of the spectrum from the baby boomers, when I'm thinking about even younger than Gen Z, and this is a problem that I see in the industry as kind of someone coming in as a bit of an outsider, is, when I think about what the general public thinks about private sector security, it's no offense, guys, but it's like mall cops. It was the Amazon Prime movie, the weird loss prevention officer kind of dude. He was a really weird dude, like, or people just don't even know that this profession exists.
Right.
And then I'm thinking, like, okay, we have such a scarcity of, like, Gen Alpha, whatever the next one is. There's so few of these kids that are going to be coming into the workforce in the next decade or two. And every industry is going to be fighting for talent. Like, if you're tradespeople, you're going to be wanting to get your hooks into them early. If you're, university, you're going to be fighting for those people, trying to get people into your particular stream. Like, what do you guys think the industry, like, this might be too broad for private, like a security leader at a company right now, too far in the future, but what do we need to be thinking about as an industry for getting our hooks, if you are, maybe that's probably not the right way, but getting younger generation thinking about security as a profession?
Yeah, I mean, I could kick it off, man. A lot of it is really educating about the industry as a whole. Look, a lot of people didn't know. I mean, I didn't know until I got into the industry at
You gonna do
19
this one,
years of
Carlos?
age
Go
what it
ahead.
really was. I actually thought I was just going to go be a bouncer somewhere, and that's going to be the bouncing. I didn't know about all these wonderful aspects of the security industry. And if you're a little tech savvy or computer savvy, you should be getting into it, like security systems. I didn't know this thing really existed, man, when I started this thing out. I think a lot of people still don't know because we focus so much as physical security as like uh, human management, not so much of the security systems. I tell everybody when I speak, I'm a board member of my university, University of Central Florida, Go Knights, on their criminal justice department. I tell kids all the time, I said, look, if you're going to focus on something and you want to do something different with your criminal justice degree than what it is, focus on two things. Focus on the security systems piece of it and the cyber side, the computer side, right? A lot of quantum computing stuff. We could cover this a little bit later. Blockchain security. Anyways, so what I try to do is to educate them on what the industry really is, because a lot of them did like I did. I thought I was just going to go bounce somewhere, and then there was nothing else after that. But I created a career out of this, and by the way, a very lucrative career. I think, that when I share with some students, if they ask how much I actually get paid, they're like, "No way," But it's true because they don't know about it. So, okay, education is the first piece. Get them really excited about what we do every single day is a piece. Change the mind of folks. Like you talk about these movies. There are plenty of movies out there, by the way, where the security officer is actually the hero. So you just got to go find those movies. Um, but yeah, starting with the education of what the industry really is, what corporate security really is, which entails a lot of investigations, right? Intelligence, the old SINT method of simple, I call it simple investigative tools that are available to us, right? Though you can't get on the dark web, and so we know that there's some. Anyways, but what I'm saying is that give them the idea of what it is, asset protection, and what asset protection, the technologies that are in there today to be able to help those things. And like tell them, blockchain asset protection is going to be coming in the same way that blockchain is used today to keep inventory. You might want to get into that type of security in the future. It won't be so much of asset protection per se, but it will be a computerized way of doing asset protection. Give them those ideas of what the future of security is going to be like. Be a freaking thinker, be a futurist like Scott is all the time, and like just think of what can happen, right? And then you're going to get kids excited about our industry. Scott?
I'll just kind of pivot on that. I mean, I totally agree. We have to demystify to this new generation. The good things about this new generation that are coming in, Gen Z's, Gen Alpha too, is that they are obviously they're the first generations that have been only online. They don't know what it's like to stand up and change the channel on TV, right? And change the channel. Imagine it. If they're listening, they just have to imagine it. They don't know how to make a phone call from a rotary dial phone. They don't know what a phone book is other than what's on their handheld device. So those are good things. Those are not bad things. It is an aspect of their generation. but they would rather be in their mom's basement coding than they would be out and being around other folks. Not everybody. I'm just making a generalization. So how do we use that for good in corporate security is, to Carlos's point, many of them aren't even aware that this is an industry and that you can go out there and you can do these things. They take it for granted because it's always been part of their life. They've had a camera on them since they were 0 years old, right? So cameras are not something they don't understand. They absolutely know what it is. And when they want to go find information out, they they just pull their handheld device out and they ask for the information, right? They don't know what a Thomas guide is, let alone a GPS. So those are all good things. Their ability to learn and scale is way faster than anybody else. But where we tend to have challenges is we still think corporate security is not IT security, and IT is not security, but it's all together right now. Every single one of our applications or our appliances is on a net, and we can see it. And the only reason we can see it is because IT lets us see it, right? Unless you build your own systems. So we can go to those folks who, my son's a cybersecurity student, and we can talk to them about corporate security is a thing, and you should consider that as a potential for your career, being on the security side of things. And I think once we do that, we'll have a lot better uptake in that. But if we aren't talking to them now, which very few organizations are talking to these younger folks, because one thing's for sure, they're not going to go be the police. That we've seen that. We've seen the trend away from being in law enforcement and the military, for that matter. Every recruiter that I ever talked to from military and law enforcement, I asked them, "How are your numbers?"
After Top Gun,
the Air Force guy looked at me the other day,
that's right,
a couple of months back, and he went,
"Okay,
"They're
yeah,
okay."
okay, fair enough.
For an Air Force guy to say they're okay is not a good thing.
I guess they're
You should be done with recruiting halfway through the year. That's the goal, right? Well, that was Navy, but I'll let it pass, Rob. You're not an American, but that's okay. It's still planes in the military, right? Yeah. So, but interestingly enough, Top Gun in the 80s was a huge driver for the Navy. And that's just the reality. Media drives these things. And to Carlos's point, we gotta keep putting us in a better light. And the job for uniform security is not getting any safer, by the way. We just had security guards recently, uniform security officers who have been gravely injured while they're doing their jobs, which may entail observe and report, maybe more than that, but they do carry weapons, some of them, and this is why we have a society where law enforcement won't respond. They just won't, not in the ways that they had in the past. And if that's
Man, you just
maybe a choice thing, it may be that they just don't have the people. That's what I tend to hear, is that they just don't have the bodies.
Kind of school of thought,
so
right?
We've got to make this a positive thing.
Get people that have to go and actually go out and touch other human beings in the future that are not this computerized, like my kids, right? And can I just buy 5 minutes on the iPad, please? Like, kid, you're 4 years old. Get out of the iPad. Go play outside, right? But anyways, it's like going to industries that we usually don't go into. And Scott and I talk about this all the time. But one of the best security officers I ever had was a server at B-Dubs, Buffalo Wild Wings. And he was like the best person, understood what was going on, understood how to get to the end to make sure the customer was happy, right? Like, he already had on his mind while he was working. Why not open up our industry if we're going to educate young people, right, to come into it? Open up the industry to like these customer service-based industries that I think that would be amazing, and they know how to go into an incident or a crisis and be able to fix it, right? They're thinking very operationally all the time. We're going to have to do some of that too as well, Rob. Open up our minds. Yeah.
You know what's interesting about that, Carlos, too, is this newer generation is very comfortable with technology, and they prefer to work with technology. So if you can put something in their hand or allow them to do a thing that flies a drone, maybe, and I know we'll talk about this, in the future, but those kinds of things, they want to be around technology. If you just said, here, stand and watch this door, a baby boomer would be, thank you for the job. I appreciate you. I can feed my family, right? Because back then you could feed your family on the wages that a security officer gets, right? But now this generation won't do it. They just